Know how to take this apart, right? And what to do first. So it's all together here right now. Just ignore the new parts or whatever. The point is, you come here, it's been broke down, the gas is gone. So now the first thing we want to do is we want to remove the orifice plate if we can. Okay? So we're going to open the bleeder to make sure there is nothing in there. Now, did you see that when I
Yeah, the
that?
whole thing spun.
That's how they put it together.
So it's not right.
No. And you'll bust it right off. You'll just
Okay.
you'll break it because it's just a tiny.
So take the grease
Take
fitting
the
out
grease gun out.
so you don't grab a hold of it and
Yep.
break it.
Take the grease gun off.
Right.
So these are the things before we take the head off.
Okay.
Set that on the table. Okay. Okay, so there's your wrench back. Now, the second thing you take off, equalizer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, usually equalizers, you see how that whole turns?
Jeez, unbelievable.
That's their tightness. Anyhow, we get the packing. Anyhow, pretend it's an old one.
Yeah. Pretend it's tight.
Yeah, we're gonna take the packing nut off. Holy jeez.
You just put dope on those?
Nope.
Nothing?
No, I'll show you all about that.
Okay.
Okay, now usually this is pretty tight in here.
Uh-huh.
Obviously, because it's new, it's loose. But what happens there, you'll see Teflon in there. The old ones with the packing nut, it pushes the Teflon in. And that's what does the sealing. So that packing nut, you're pushing the Teflon goes in and goes up against the threads on the packing nut.
Right.
Like there's the internal threads. And literally the Teflon will go right into the threads and just seize in there, okay? So then when you go to turn this open, this stem has got a separate thread in here. So you'll turn this guy here, and whether it's hard or not, but anyhow, you're unscrewing it. And when you're unscrewing it, it'll get back to a point where it starts to push on the Teflon to bring it out. And usually that's when it gets really hard and tight. The new one here will come out easy. But you'll see how the Teflon is starting to push out. See how it comes out?
Yeah.
See how it's pushing out?
Yeah, you can see it pop out.
So you keep turning, and you'll turn and turn. It won't thread all the way out. It'll come out to a point where it just turns because it's come off the thread on the inside. There's two sets of threads in there. Big one, little one. So it'll get to the point where it's like that and it won't come out anymore. This Teflon's usually stuck in there on the threads. At that time, you'll get a pair of vice grips. And you'll use a hammer, and you'll hit this with the hammer to shake that Teflon out, okay? Like that.
Right.
And trust me, when they're tight in there, you'll need more in my hand. It's a hammer, okay? And you'll bang it back and forth, and pretty soon it'll
Slowly work its way out.
and it comes out.
Okay.
That's how you get it out, okay? So I'll let you take that. Here. There it is.
There you go.
Okay, I don't want to lose this. This is a brand new one. Okay, so when we take the old one out, you see the old ball bearing, you'll inspect it to see how round it is, or it's got marks on it or edges on it.
Mm-hmm.
There won't be anything on this one's brand new. So we got that out. The reason we take that out, because it's whole hard to turn and to hold this, right? Right now this is holding this like a vise. If you take this head off and try to do it on the floor there, you'll need two Magilla gorillas to hold this while you're trying to turn the other thing and bang it out.
Right, right.
So that's what you're doing there. So we took that off. Try not to lose nothing down in there. Of course, this would be all old rusty parts.
Okay.
These are all nice and new. So we want to keep that in a rag clean. Get everything out of here. The
Are
spring.
those new springs as well?
These are all new. They put new in.
Okay.
But you wouldn't see that if we were firstly.
Yeah, right.
Everything would be old. Now this guy here, it's back out of the way. We want to move that forward. So then we can pull this up and pull the guides out. There's a guide on either side. We just don't want to lose it down in there, and then you got to go fishing.
Okay.
And that's what happens when you push too much grease in. It goes down there over and lubes up the gears. Okay, see, we take this, we'll clean this up later. You take this plug out here, all right? And then you get in here and you start scraping. You start at the top, wire brush all this down, get the gasket, get this spotless, okay? All this here and all around there. You scrape in here on the gears, on the lands. Right here, you'll take your scraper and you'll scrape it right down to the metal, because that's where those guides that were on there, that's where they sit on there. You want them to sit perfectly on metal to metal, not on any debris or garbage. So you want to scrape them right down, and then turn your gears, and you're turning your gears to see if there's a broken cog. All right, so we'll put the wrench on here, and we're turning. Everything's going around and everything looks good, and the shaft is turning good, so there's no reason to take that shaft out of there. It's all in good shape, and you're not gaining anything by taking the shaft off and pulling it all apart. Completely different if you took the picture before and then after.
A lot cleaner.
Yep. And seeing that pin down below, that's your key. .38 12 point, and I use a little driver like this because you don't want to overdo it. You don't want a big thing on these little screws, you'll bust them. And this is a good torquing value. You can only pull so tight.
Right.
Putting this on is like putting a head on a motor. You want to put it on from the center down. You want to, and one guy does it and just keeps going back and forth until it's all down level. Okay, so take it off, and these all come easy.
Pretty easy.
They don't have them torqued.
Is there a torque? Okay.
First of all, what I want to do is look in there and see how the holes look. So there's where the ball bearing sits. You see that?
Yep.
Okay. So it doesn't, the holes don't look plugged. They look pretty good. But you can see that the countersink looks a little rough, eh? It's not shiny.
Kind of like
But
the counter a little bit.
yep, oh yeah. So, but anyhow, we're gonna clean out the holes just to make sure. So we'll go in the center, and there's nothing there. I've had these full of iron sulfates. You have to drill them out with a drill.
Oh, really?
And then you got a side hole that goes into there. See that? So that's the side hole. Then you got the center hole that goes in here. And it goes up to a 90,
Yeah,
and then comes up straight up. Okay? All right, so that looks clear and that. So what we're gonna do is just test that.
All right, it's popping up the top.
Yep. Out there and on the side. So we got to lubricate it up. Now I'm gonna tap the inner stem.
So you always tap that on the rebuild?
Always, everything. It's tapped and clean. Clean, tap, clean. You can see how stiff it is, right? You try to put a new one in there and you screw up the threads screwing it in. You got to bring it back to life. Bring it back to new. You only go so far. That's it, bottoms out.
Mm-hmm.
Make it nice and loose. This is the reamer. We're going to put it in here, thread it in, and it's going to thread until that's tight.
Mm-hmm.
Then by me turning on that puts pressure on there, so I can gauge what I'm doing. And then once I get it to there, I can just turn this. And then take it off. So you don't have to go a lot. You can see where I've peeled it off, just that little bit of pressure, not too much. I look in there, and there's the ring. See how it's
Nice
cleaned
and
it up?
shiny, whereas before it wasn't. And that's where the ball sits.
That's where the ball sits.
Right.
Oh, so you just reamed.
Cleaned her, clean. This ring goes up against the shoulder from this thread to the other thread.
Right.
That washer will go up against the shoulder, and the packing nut will go here. And then when the packing nut comes in here and pushes on this ring doesn't let it go all the way up. It only lets it go to that shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you push on this, it spreads this, and that's what does your sealing.
Right.
Okay? It tightens into the threads here and also tightens onto the shaft. All right, for your sealing. The tighter you turn this, the tighter it goes, it stops your leak, and it tightens this shaft. You go too much, you stop the leak, but you can't turn the shaft. There's tweaking involved, okay? You can't overdo it, so the right person on it. Same thing with the packing nuts. You turn it too much, you'll stop the leak, but then you seize the shaft, you can't turn it. Okay? So the right person on it, right? So what we're gonna do is take this off. Always make sure when you take this off, you never put it on backwards
Right.
or put it on wrong. Pay attention the way it comes off, okay? We'll take that off.
Daniel's grease.
Daniel stick grease. We'll take some, put the grease on the end of it, and we'll push the ball bearing on there. This is the new ball bearing, and we want to adhere that to the end of it. A little snow cone. I don't want to get ridiculous. So you likely know where I'm going with this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And then we're going to run her in here.
Right. Tighten it up.
I need that Daniel wrench. So I've tightened it. So I've more or less made an imprint.
Right.
Are you doing it? Okay, we're on doing it. Take it out. So now you can see it's made an imprint. You see how it's all nice and shiny? That's where the ball met the countersink.
Yeah.
And see the seat?
Mm-hmm.
So if it didn't seat, then the grease would be pushed up around it like that. But because it was all shiny all the way around, it's metal to metal, and that's your seat. That's your test.
Okay.
Okay? So say you had an old one, you pulled it off, you didn't have a new one. If in there you washed it out, you can get a wire brush with a little ball on the end. It's a wire brush ball, and you can go in there and just scrub it, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Spray it, scrub it, try to clean the shit off it, right? And then you can do this with the old one. You can take it as long as the ball bearing's good. You put it on there, put the grease on there, you can test it. That'll tell you whether you got a good seal.
So dope up the threads.
Dope up the threads. You see how easy it goes when you tap out the threads like that. So you put it in and then back it off a little bit. You don't put it in tight. then you run this in.
Okay, okay.
Wire washer first,
Yep.
or the washer first, big packing, little packing. Push her in there. Packing nut. That goes in.
And
One
don't
inch,
taper
1
dope.
inch box.
Don't taper dope.
1
1
inch.
inch box.
You put that on, you remember which way you put this on, okay? Because you already pre-fit it, so you set it down so you can put it up and put it on.
Right.
So then you get it up here, that matches up. And then you dope this for the seal bar.
Mm.
And you just dope, you don't have to dope the whole thing, just the inner piece right now. Don't make a mess. You look for the equalizer hole. Okay, grease track is on the back. This one goes around, comes up this way and comes this way. Okay, so you're looking for the equalizer here, equalizer there, match it up. Okay, and we're going to drop all these guys in.
Right.
And this is where we start them all. Get them all started. The reason you get them all started is because of this. This washer here,
Yeah.
this washer just fits this hole, and that's what aligns that head. So you don't want to tighten one down that they can't move and the other washers can't align stuff up, right? You see how it moved a little there? So we start everything. This is a one-person thing. You don't have two people doing separate torquing on this. Not good. One guy's a macho guy, other guy's a little little guy. So then once you get them all started, you just hand tight down, snug, snug, and you always work from the center out. Leave the ends until the end. Get everything done first. And then do the ends. You notice I'm not putting much pressure because
No.
I can't at this angle. So they're all down. Everything's really nice and flat. Nothing's overdone. Now you come back to the center and now you pull a little more. A little more. Same torque. And you get someone to hold the head for you. And you come back to the center again. And a little more. Because with a new gasket, it keeps compressing
Yeah.
each time you go. It's not like it's an old gasket. And you give the ends a little bit. We're just about there. Last bit. You can tell when it's tight.
Those are new as well.
No,
All bolts.
they look like it, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that's it, tight. Notice here that the ends here are kind of touching, but the center isn't. It's kind of floating around.
Okay.
If I go this way, they aren't touching, the center's touching.
Okay.
So this plate has a bit of a bow,
Yeah.
or the valve seat is a bit of a, because you
Pose.
torqued it, right?
Hmm.
So everything you want it precision, but if something's been moved, it's got that, or this, right? So if you have that little gap there, because this is tight here, that gap there, you're expecting the grease to plug that.
Hmm.
And sometimes the grease doesn't. There's so much pressure it's pushing through there, right?
Yeah.
By rights, if this is perfectly flat, machined, everything's bang on, you don't need the grease. Metal to metal, she'll seal. But the grease is on there because when it moves back and forth, it doesn't gnarl and scrape each other, tear up.
Okay.
So the better fit on this you can get, the better it helps you get a good seal, right? So right now here, my ends are touching. I got a bit of a gap here. So I'll take this.
Better.
That's way better now.
So you don't even have
So
to,
I form it.
you don't have to hit it too hard.
No, well, not with a rubber mallet, but no. So I kind of help it, and it just, it went from here and it just kind of shocked it, eh?
Hmm.
Right? That little bit. You don't want to try and put it over stuff and bend the hell out of it. You're just helping it get a little bit. Because the pressure on this coming up here on this plate from there, if it's lots of pressure, it'll help hold it up there, but it's not there to bend it,
Right.
right? So you're forming it so it's there. Now it'll hold it tight. Okay?
So you put the grease there.
Grease tells me what side I want to put this. In other words, I forget
Then
what.
you
Yeah, of course. Of
Yeah, I
course.
put it down. Fuck, which way I go.
Yeah. Okay.
You can put a little felt marker on there. I don't care.
Okay.
I'm just using what I got. Hammer them in there so they don't come out.
Not by hand, hey?
Not by hand. Fingers up here, so obviously I made it down through the hole.
Oh, okay.
All right, so I know it's open.
All the way down.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so there's the check.
That
On the
check
inside.
is in there. And it is in here. Okay?
Can I have a look at
So then you can see the ball bearing on the end of it.
I can feel it
Yeah.
there. Oh, there it is. See
So
it?
that's up inside there. That's your double check. So that means,
Where's the other one?
where's that grease come? That means that under pressure, I can take this whole gun off
Right.
and empty, and that check will hold it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
All right. Now, to make it even safer, if I'm under pressure and you're not feeling good about it, all I need is the gate closed. Okay? So that means that this guy here is over top of this grease groove, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It's there. The gas is trying to get through there. The pressure's up against here. You bleed it off, you leave the bleeder open and bleed the head
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
Now, the gas can't get up through there. That means the gas is not coming out here.
Yeah.
Right.
So you can take that grease gun off, put a new grease gun, put it back in, and away you go. That's a double
Yeah.
safety.
Depressure the top.
But if
half.
you leave this open,
Yeah.
now you got pressure on the grease. That check's there,
Yeah.
but it could leak a little. But that gives you extra safety.
Okay.
So close the gate, bleed it down. Now you can pull the gun out. That's just extra safety. Okay? And you can feel it. It's starting to go. It's got to go in around the back, and it should come up in 2 spots.
There we go.
It's got to push that black shit out of there
Yeah.
first. So there's the other one. So we'll just see how far I'm gone now. I just about to put a whole stick in there.
Yeah.
So we'll
Just
go
'cause it was
there.
empty, hey?
Yeah, because it's empty. So now while you're here, you might as well load it up again. Because it's easier here when you can freewheel it. When it's on there, you got to go.
Quarter turn at a time.
And a
or
lot of
whatever.
guys, they don't have the patience. So I don't grease. Fuck. Yeah, I'm not kidding. It's just, but Jock's got a ratchet.
Yeah.
Jock just uses an impact gun.
Oh well, whatever. To get it out, that's fine. And to bury the threads, that's fine too. So if this was already going and everything, you put a gun in. or put a new stick in, you don't leave the threads exposed.
Right, right.
You bury the threads. Okay. Then you're there.
Right. So with the plate on, it would just carry on. Carry along.
Kind of.
Here.
No. With it compressed in that, this is the thing. This track is filled with grease, and we're going to pack it by hand right now. This is where you don't leave it empty.
Okay.
You pack it by hand. This is important. To
Break it.
break it. Now this one is this is from Michelin. This is not a Daniel one. Okay. If you bought a brand new Daniel one now, it would have a little hole right here drilled.
Okay.
Now this is a safety that Daniel does, because guys were taking the stems out, and all of a sudden it would start bubbling here, gas, for whatever reason it was coming through, and the more you take it off, it was bubbling, and you know how that feels when you're trying to take it off and it's bubbling, eh?
Yeah.
Like holy fuck, even I get nervous. Is it gonna blow out or?
Yeah.
Right? So what they did is drilled a hole there that when the end of this stem comes past the hole, if there's gas, it'll come out that hole
Right.
and let you know right now, eh?
Yeah.
So it's a safety thing. Anyhow, that's the reason for that. So on the new ones, when you run it and take it out and put a new stick in there and start pushing this in, the grease starts to come out of that hole
Yeah.
and kind of spirals out until the stem goes past it.
Right.
And you make sure the channel's full, and if it overflows, that's okay. It'll all wipe off.
Okay. All the way around.
All the way around the groove. Clean.
Back gears nice and clean.
Yep. So you can note cleaning is a big thing. Everything doesn't matter what point.
What?
Clean it. You know, even these, you know, you put them on a buffer and clean them up.
Yeah.
You bring them back to life, right?
Yeah.
And that's got to slide too.
That's got to get in there because the springs sit in there, eh? So you look at this spring. This thing compresses right down to there when it compresses. See that spring? How far it's got to go?
Yeah, quite a bit.
So a lot of people will say, I need new springs, right? You can cut this spring in half and it'll work. Most of the time, if you get a bag of springs, you're good for the whole plant. Your old springs will work just as good, right? And then they'll give you springs, and there's so many compartments here that maybe you're missing two, and they'll say, oh fuck, I don't have enough springs. You got enough springs,
Yeah, it don't matter.
right? Now you'll notice on these carriers here, there's holes in it.
Okay, yeah.
The reason for the holes here is when this is on here and you're under pressure, the springs hold it up and the gas comes up through these holes that push.
Also pushes.
That's why the holes are there.
Okay.
Clean
Okay,
all
it's
the
only us that's gonna see
clean
this.
all the
Yeah.
debris out of there so it has a free movement on the gears that are in the fitting so they don't bind up and break. So you must clean the plate carrier. Make sure the debris is out of the gears. It makes it for better motion, operation, and you won't break anything. That's what it looks like. Where's that little pen? So when it comes like this and it's chipped to you and it's taped up, you'll see that this half here is the upstream. This half here with the seal is the downstream. You can see the difference here. Okay, and you'll see on the outside here, downstream's thinner, upstream's thicker. And the downstream has that seal. And that's an energizing seal that you literally put the screwdriver in there like this without the plate in there, and you go around, you clean the stuff out of there, and it literally opens that gap again. So you energize it. That's why they call it energizing seal. And that's the seal for the OD of the plate. So when the pressure's going down through, it seals on the OD of the plate in the Teflon. So the gas can't go through here, and it can't go around here, but it can't go through the OD of the plate either. Okay? All it can do is go through the ID. If you put it on backwards, you'll lose measurement.
Right.
And you lose decks, and you're just giving gas away. No measurement.
I see that again.
And it's nothing to do with the clips.
Right.
Clips just hold it together. It's nothing to do with direction.
Right.
Okay? Once you put the plate in,
Mm-hmm.
gears are up and down, top, bottom. Okay? So when you roll her down in, you don't want the fastener at the bottom where it's going to catch on the seal going into the bottom of the fitting.
Mm-hmm.
You want to rotate it so that's on a 45. Okay? Doesn't matter about the top. It's the bottom when it goes in so it doesn't catch the Teflon and rip it. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, when it's assembled, you got the valve carrier all nice and cleaned up. The gears are clean, no obstruction. You got the Teflon seal in with the energizing seal, and you got the plate in with the bevel. So you got the gears, the seal downstream, and the bevel all on the downstream. Everything is on one side. 1, 2, 3. On the top side, on the upstream, nothing, just a sharp edge. That's the proper installation of an orifice plate with a Teflon seal. Never goes any other which way. You don't put the head on and then put the carrier in. The carrier's got to go number 1.
Okay.
There's a reason for all that. Now, sometimes it just takes a little bit to get it in because you're playing it by hand, right? And so you try to get it straight. There we go. And when you're putting it in like this, you're seeing how the Teflon goes into the top seal.
Mm-hmm.
You see it down in there? And you're seeing how it goes down in. It comes down to that level, you're looking straight across to make sure it's bang on. This size and even bigger ones really matter because it can be out one tooth and it looks good. But it's out one tooth, it'll go down, but it won't come back out. Then you got to take the head off. Can't close the gate, you're screwed. All right, just by not paying attention how it goes in. Okay, so that looks good. We're going to run it down. So this is all a test day. You're seeing how everything moves.
Mm-hmm.
You see there's no resistance. I'm pushing on this.
Yeah.
Down it goes. Now I'm down in there. I can't hurt nothing right now. So I want to make sure it's got a seat. So I'm,
I hear that.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Now you guys do that. And you, without hearing that, because it gets noisy out here, you're under mask, whatever. This feeling here, you can feel it on the wrench. So just get. We have a right hand one, we have a left hand one. The bevels go back into the casting, okay? And they're shaped so they go underneath here.
Okay.
That's the reason they're angled. If you bought new guides today, you'd have an angle here and an angle there. So when you see this, you got a problem, you got both the same, cut an angle on the other end.
Okay.
You just made a new one. Okay, so anyhow, that was just a tidbit. Okay, so now we're going to put it in. When you put these in, they must go as a unit. If you can put these in individual, something's wrong in there. It's a tight fit, they got to go together and snap in. Okay? Once you snap it in there, we'll run her back out of the way. So now we run it back till the stop hit, and you'll see that the orifice plate carrier comes up nice and square. That stop underneath of this is going to go across this, right? And this is down tight. So I'm expecting this to go across without hitting and pushing up on me. And it's going to go that far. So it didn't come up. So I can go back on this one and I can see how much. See that?
Mm-hmm.
Just there.
Space, yeah.
Just there. So that's good.
Yeah.
Now if this would have picked up when I was coming across, I would have taken it out. I would have gave it a little bit of a file. Don't grind the hell out of it. Just file it, pre-fit it. Okay? Because it's all doing a job, right? It's all connecting so it does a job. So we move this back out of the way again. Everything looks good. The slides are in there. And the slides really don't move after a while. You can see how it slides back and forth. It's inside the guides. So now you know why we clean the shoulders on this casting so those guides sit nice and square and tight. If there's stuff on there, it would get in the way and make everything crooked. Not good. Cleaning, cleaning, cleaning. Bring it back to new.
Okay.
Makes everything work. So now it opens up far enough. What we're going to do now is we're going to bring the front part of this halfway across that carrier. Right there. We're going to stop it. The reason we bring this across here is that when we go to put the head on here, we look down through the head and we can see every edge. We can see the gate, the valve carrier, and the orifice plate carrier, and the valve strip carrier. We can see it's all front edge. So when we put the head on, we can adjust that bottom to line everything up and snap in. If you can't see that and it doesn't go together and snap in, you don't know where you are. You're lost. And if it doesn't snap together and you start forcing it down, you will break all this and be back to number one. Springs here. Line it up the best you can. So when I put the head on, that will compress and snap down in. And I can see all the front pieces of this down through the head. So I know what's going on. Because if you hit this and this goes off like this, what do? Right?
Yeah.
You're in trouble before you even start. And you do not put nuts on here until that snaps in and you know what you're doing. You put nuts on here and force it down, you break everything. Now this is where you bring it over.
Okay.
You make sure you keep it up high, bring it down, line it up,
Oh, so you can see what's going on, right?
and let her go down. You just let her, that's it. Now if this was a big one, you'd have it on a crane.
Yeah.
You'd have it coming down. You got to be looking in there at the same time. The minute you get started on the studs here, even with the crane, as soon as you're started on the studs, you stop, you're looking inside, you bring it down slow. Because if you got a big enough one with a crane and you let the weight on it, you'll break it.
Okay.
So you got to let it come down, and then you come down, and the point is it'll sit right there, and then you can literally snap it in. You see how tight it is there?
Yeah, push.
Now, if it didn't snap in, I'd put the wrench on there and I would turn the gate a little bit. And then everything would move and boom, snap in. So it's like a puzzle. So what I need is a little bit of dope on here and a nut. Do anything else. You don't put any other nuts or nothing. Then I'll need a stud that goes in here. Now this is where guys put it on and they just say, okay, tighten her up, fuck it, we're done. No, you're not done. First of all, you're checking to make sure the gate's okay, not bound up. So we're going to open it up. Not going to close it, just going to open it up. That's good.
Okay.
So I know it's okay. Now, at this point, we're going to run the carrier up. So you see when we run the carrier up, have you noticed the problem right now?
It's tighter on the one side.
There you go. That's what would happen if you tightened it up right now.
Okay.
Now, if you know that seal in there and it's coming up and it's tight on the one side, what's going to happen?
It's gonna scrape the seal.
It's going to catch it and rip her out. So the best scenario for that is that red hammer.
Dead blow and just.
Put in there.
We're going to align the head. Here, hang on that.
She moved.
Yep. Sometimes that's all you'll get, just that little bit. But you see the movement on the studs, right?
Yeah.
It's not a set thing. There you go. So you can see the difference now.
Yeah. It's pretty.
You got gap on both sides. All the difference in the world
Oh, okay.
on saving your orifice seal.
Yeah.
Okay? Wrench. So now once you get to that, snug her down. Here again, one person, because you know what you're doing and you got the same weight. You get one guy doing something, the other guy, all you're doing is asking for trouble. Okay, that one's down. Once you got her snug like that, you'll run the plate up, have a look at it. You don't need to bring it out. Bring her down. Got her? Close the gate. You'll see the gate go across. You see how it's wiping the grease off?
Yeah.
And how it closes. Guys here.
So
From the center
two,
out.
Center two.
And then out to here and here. This way and this way. Those are the ones you're going to tighten from center out.
Okay.
Then the two center ones on the end. Same thing on this end. These corners here on all fittings, you do not touch until the last thing. You do not torque these down the same as these, or you're in trouble. The reason is, this corner here has no support. You will pull this hunk of metal down over that gasket, metal to metal, and you'll pinch it, and you'll bubble the gasket, and it will leak. Don't matter what you do, and you've wrecked the head. You do not touch the corners until the last thing, and then I'll show you how much you do. Other than that, you tighten from the center out, and you tighten them. Can't hurt them. There. So if this head is leaking, you go back on there with the wrench, you start in the center again, and you give her a little more, little more, little more. If anything, you loosen the corners off, then come back on the centers and tighten. Work your way out and keep testing. All right? By Daniel's rate or spec, these, if you tighten this down correctly, you don't need to tighten the corners at all. That's how much of a seal you get. So stay away from the corners. All they'll do is give you grief. All right, for if you have a leak. I've never had one yet. You put the dope, put it on tight, and tighten it down the way we have. Not an issue. You see the stuff on here. Now by rights, if you had it off, you could have, if you could get a buffer in there and buff it and clean it,
We have one.
that's good.
Let's
or-
try the drill.
Actually, I think
Well, now it's gonna go all inside. So.
the wire brush will probably just
Yeah.
in there.
Well, that's okay. Well, whatever's on that slide, it slides off.
Okay. Okay.
And that's the thing when you're doing or changing or checking the orifice plate too, eh? Make sure you got some dope with you, a new 9A gasket. But if the gasket comes off because it's been doped and looks good, it'll go back on. So it doesn't hurt to put a little bit of dope on it and revitalize it, right? And if you ever watch how the gasket comes on, this is not too bad. It hasn't been imprinted too much because they didn't put it too tight. But if you ever watch how this comes off, try to keep it so it goes back on the same way. So this snaps down in.
Okay.
And if you turn it the other way, then you make a new cutting, right? Then you have an issue with the seal. So. There again, this one here, a lot of times, every one I've seen, which has been good here, every one I pulled the gasket off, oh, this one isn't. I should have known better. Every one was a good surface. This is what happens when nobody pays attention what they're doing.
All right.
What's happening, boys?
And then they figure, well, that's okay. No, this is a seal. This is no different than that seal down below, right? And now you've destroyed it because you didn't take the time to put it back the same way.
Right.
Now you've wrecked it, right? So by rights, we could go back to the shop and give this a bit of a, with a grinder, and buff that up and resurface it.